So, hi everyone, thank you very much for watching or listening. Liam Hartree here with another episode of Presenting Champions. Today, joined by a very special guest. I'm excited to have him on the show. We've had to persevere a little bit to make this happen. We've got there, so it really is an honour to have Dean Robinson on the show today. First ever British Lethwei champion, as well as extensively competing in Muay Thai kickboxing. I believe there's bare knuckle kickboxing, there's unlicensed boxing, all different styles he's competed in. We're going to be talking today not only about Lethwei, but also about Dean's mentality, the mindset you have to compete in one of the toughest sports on earth, maybe the toughest sport on earth. Lethwei, also his world title challenge we're going to talk about, his training, lots of cool stuff, so stay tuned everyone. But before we get into anything else, champ, like I said to you just now, thank you for coming on the show and thank you for sticking with it, because I know you've not had an easy time, so thank you for making the time for this, mate. I do appreciate it a lot.
No problem.
Yeah. Okay, so getting into it from there, I mean, I think that I'm going to jump right into it with the Lethwei side of things. Now, I know it's not exactly in order, because you've been fighting a while and you've had these different styles, but people are going to want to hear about that. So, starting the interview with a bang. Obviously, it's a very, very tough sport. It's a sport that's not been in the UK a long time, but it's growing in popularity. What actually inspired you to compete in Lethwei? That first fight against Sean Lomas, obviously you had Gaz Curran after that as well. But what was it, if we go just before that, that actually gave you the idea, thinking, I want to try this, I want to do this?
It goes back from when I was a child, watching Jean-Claude Van Damme in Kickboxer, the film Kickboxer. And if you look at the end of the film, he has the fight at the end with Tom Paul, doesn't he? And it's underground and it's glue. And there's headbutts getting involved in and I just thought it was one of them type of movie films that they just make a movie out of it. Then it wasn't long after that I realised that was actually a proper sport back in the ancient times, back in Burma. It was when I did the first bare knuckle type Andy Baker's show. It was in a car park as well. And once I'd done that, he asked me if I wanted to do Lethwei, and I was like, Lethwei, and he said, I couldn't even see it properly, to be honest. I'm saying Lethwei or Google it. So I Googled it, put it in, and then I was just knocked back by it. I was just like, wow. And then when I started watching some of the fights in Burma, some of the ruthless ones I've ever seen in my life, I didn't even know it, especially with the headbutts and stuff. So then it brought me back to the time watching Jean-Claude Van Damme. And I was like, that's what they were doing. That's what that was all about. That was basically what the film indicated in the ancient way, and it's been going on longer than Muay Baran. Muay Baran has gone on longer than Muay Thai. But Lethwei was before all that, and it's supposed to be. It's most Muay Thai fighters that can't make it in the stadiums or can't make it in the in the big leagues because they're not that good. He dropped down to Lethwei because Lethwei you don't get paid as much to be a good Thai boxer in Muay Thai. Thai boxing in Thailand, it's their everything, isn't it? It's their World Cup. It's what they do. Believe it, don't. So, and in most gyms, if you lose up to like 3 in a row, you can be kicked out the gym, and they're not that good. Then sometimes you can alter it by not using the gloves, so you've got glazed wraps. And then if you're good with the clinch, you only have to add the 9th limb, which is the head. And the head doesn't involve. You can't just walk up to them and just try and headbutt them. It doesn't work. You can never get a headbutt off it. You can see it coming basically. So it has to be done in a sneaky way. You gotta basically in a clinch. As soon as you're in a clinch, you have to be close up. So then you can push off and then throw the head in. And that's what I was practicing on the bag. And I was like, yeah, gotta watch out for that headbutt. but it actually worked for me very well against Sean, and it was just like one of the tools I've ever. I mean, don't get me wrong. When you've been in the streets and you use your head and stuff, but when you were using it in the what's it called in under the lights, it just magnifies it a lot more than what it is. Do you know what I mean? It magnifies how brutal the sport actually is, because with that 9mm, it just makes it a lot more. Not only that, with the Lethwei as well, you've got the what they call revival rounds. So if you like get knocked out cold, you can be brought back. You got like 2 minutes to fight back. And in the what's the Lethwei fight, do that with they're asleep and they're like rubbing the cheeks and blowing in the ears. I don't know what they're doing, they're blowing into their ears, and then come around, and then you got the 2 minutes, and then they go, "You ready again?" They go, "Yeah, they're ready again," and then start to get up and then knock the other out, and then he'd be knocked out, and it's the same, and then it actually happens in I don't know what you thought that David Ludwig fought him in the cage not so long back, but he knocked out knocked out the Burma fighter with the spinning elbow, and he was out cold. And then his team woke the tie back up and then fired them out, and then he was able to knock the I think the American to knock the American out. Then, but the American didn't come back out of it. Didn't come back to fight, carry on. So he basically took his lifeline and come back and actually won the fight. So it is a very unusual sport, let's say. So when I was watching that, I was like, oh my God, that's just like Muay Thai. But I like the street fighter look, because you got to wear the gloves, and it was like you were basically just having a street fight in a Thai controlled way. So I then started training, because I can do Muay Thai. I've been doing Muay Thai. I've been fighting Muay Thai for 25 years. But what I've got to do is alternate my stance, continue with my Muay Thai training, but then just learn how to use your head in a way. That did you got limb, and that was all. And it worked for me well better than my Thai career. I think if I was 10 years younger, I would have carried on. I would have wanted a lot more Lethwei fights than Thai, because it was just me a lot more better than what the Thai. Same with that David Duff. He was absolutely. He wasn't good at Muay Thai at all. His career was really not really bad, but it wasn't good. It was only when he jumped into the Lethwei and his career started going up, because he was built for Lethwei. He's very creative with his head. He knows how to use it properly, and most of the Burman lads who was all small, and he was always like a little bit bigger than him. So he always had the advantage for height. But then he became the Lethwei king. Then everyone's all talking about Lethwei, and everyone didn't know what it was. And then it was only when, I mean, trying to explain to them, I had to explain to people so many times, and we coachly say is, I told Lee about it, but Lee was like, oh, he thought I was exaggerating. And then when we got to the fight, when we got to the actual show part, and then the ref came to me, and Liam was like, "Yeah, I'm just going to Lethwei, can you explain what exactly does this entail? This fight?" And when he told Lee, I've fought under Lee for a few years now. I've never seen his reaction to what he got told when he said, "Yeah, you can be knocked out and then brought back, and you can headbutt," and he was just, "You see, yeah." And I was like, and he went, "Right, okay." He said, "If you get knocked out, you're not getting woke up." And I went, "No, Lee, you got it. But luckily enough, it didn't go that way. I got the win with Sean. But Lee even says to this day, he said, "If you'd got knocked out in that fight, I would have brought you back, but I would have cancelled the fight." Because he's like my best mate as well as the coach. He was looking out for me that way, you know what I mean? But like, oh, let me fight and all that. But you need 2 minutes to recover. And if you can't recover in 2 minutes, then you know yourself. If you're still unsteady on your feet, that person as well, as soon as they know that you've recovered from 2 minutes, they know it only takes a second then to just destroy you. Yeah, because you're not on your properly eye, you're dazed and you're unconscious. So with Sean, it was all body. I couldn't really knock Sean out. His head was that thick. It just wouldn't. He wouldn't go down off a head kick, elbow, I don't know how many times. And then it was only when I just started targeting his body sort of worked then, because he was a fit lad. He wasn't fit for that fight. So the more he was gassing, the more I was seeing it was breaking. And then with the head, same with the eye as well. When someone throws at the first elbow, you'll see they open the floodgates then. So then I started off by headbutting him first, and then it was him headbutting me. Then it was it was just 1-for-1. Then, do you know what I mean? It's just when it went. It was real good fun. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, it was an amazing fight as well. I mean, it was honestly I've watched it a few times, and it was really something special. And I think because both of you, I mean, you did just go for it, you know, in all fairness, and I got massive respect for the pair of you with that. We'll get into how you feel about the win in a moment, but before we get into that, I mean, it's a fairly obvious question, I guess. But when you do get headbutted, does it hurt more than other blows, or is it less, or do you sort of not feel it in the moment, or?
You, when you go into the clinch, you're always elbow. That's the main weapon you're worried about in a clinch is the elbow, or obviously to the knee, to the ribs, or to the. But you don't want them elbows coming over the top because you can rock your world. So when you've got the head, it's got to be like you've got a short one. So when Sean was putting me, I was just seeing him because he wasn't getting the leverage I could get on mine. He could only sort of wiggle his head, whereas I was pushing up the back foot and trying to catch him on his but he caught me well on the cheekbone there, and he broke all my cheekbone, and he had to get all that all reconstructed, the side of my face, or basically just pushed in basically, and me I had a my jaw and my cheekbone for cheekbone as well. But so it was all bone on bone. There's no gloves. I mean, I've boxed and had a few boxing fights in them 10-ounce gloves, and they're not on compared to when a bare knuckle hits you. Like, I mean, you got people who can throw a punch. When you've got someone who can throw a punch correctly, it's just so different. It hits you in the feel every single one, especially with the grade. Because in the bare knuckle tie, with bare knuckle boxing, you don't have the wraps stop here on your knuckles. Your knuckles are open basically. Whereas in Lethwei, you have a wrap over it, so it punches, but once it hits, it rips as well. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit more different than bare knuckle and with the Lethwei, but sometimes in bare they glaze it, like a glue over it, so it stays compact, so it doesn't come off. But I suppose that makes it even harder, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah. And obviously, you were part of history with that fight as well with Sean, because winning the British title, obviously, you know, it's a massive deal. It's a massive achievement because, obviously, as I mentioned, Lethwei hadn't been around that long at the time you won it. I think the awareness was still rising and things like that. How do you feel about basically being part of history? You know, having your name in the history books for winning that fight, um, and and such a special achievement. How do you feel about that now, looking back on it?
Yeah, it does. It makes you feel really, really good. Because not just that, I think I like to, I like to, I'd like to say I was the first scouser for bare knuckle tie. I mean, there's a lot of scousers that have done bare knuckle, but not bare knuckle tie box. Created by Andy Bakewell on the first what was it called? Bloodsport, was it? Bloodsport, yeah. It was the first ever one before Andy Bakewell became big in the bare knuckle scene. It was in a makeshift car park, like, but it wasn't like it is like what do you know what I mean? But yeah, it was great because I've got a I've got that first title, that first ever British title to never. When Lethwei does finally become like well, I mean it's getting up there now. It's kind of there now. Is what everyone's sort of talking about it. But one day it'll be like the UFC. I think it'll be like as big as that, and then it'll be like it's like to know that like someone goes, who was the first champion in Britain? Like, well, like Dean Robinson, he was the first British title holder for it. And then when I fought Gaz and when Gaz beat me for the world title, it didn't feel that. I was thinking, well, I've made history. He's made history. which one of them it was. And Gaz is one of the best lads out there as well. He's like the cream of the creme. Gary, Gaz, like really is. But he was it was just an honour to share the ring with him. It was an honour to share the ring with Sean. To have that crown. At that point in time, I should have and after Sean Lomas, like I went right side with that because I went Sean fought before I fought him, but it went to 4th round with Sean. Sean was Gaza ended up knocking Sean out cold over and right to the heavy. But the Sean couldn't recover from it. He didn't even get the. I don't think he got. Oh, he did. Yeah, he did. He got the 2 lifeline rounds and come back and then just knocked him out cold. And then I got in touch with Andy and I said, look, Andy, because he was taking that crown. So I said, is it all right if I come down and give Gaz the crown? And he was like, oh, that'd be brilliant if he comes down. Yeah. So me and my mate drove down from Manchester, and once Gaz, I was going to crown the winner. It's going to be Sean or Gaz, former champion. I just knew it was going to see how he was. He was just faster of hands. He was so I actually knew I had a feeling he was going to win. But when I went round, put the crown around him, I should have left it in the. But that demon that just keeps popping up, do you know what I mean? Like 3 or 4 months, 5 months down the line from you, whenever you fall, any fight he'll tell you. You just get that time again. It comes around, you just got it in your heart to train, but then you've got in your heart to fight, and then get to a point where you're like, I'm too old for this. Trying to keep up with the young people, do you know what I mean? Trying to keep up with them, and it's not only that now. It's all changing now, isn't it? It's all what's the word I'm looking for when things go from something to something else, like Muay Thai. So it's all changed. It's different when you watch people train now than when I was back when I first started, early 90s. It's just different. It's just evolved. That's the word I'm looking for. Evolved. It's evolved a lot more better, a lot more advanced. Well, it's been Liam Harrison as well. Liam brought it right through the ranking.
Yeah, he has. He's done a lot, mindset with the awareness and with the publicity. But yeah, I mean, nonetheless, amazing achievements in Lethwei that you've got, and definitely part of history. Definitely to be proud of, something to look back and be proud of. On the subject of what you're proud of, though, you've done a lot. I mean, we'll come to the future in a minute and talk about what you want to do from here. But just taking a little bit more time to look back. Obviously, when we were talking about this. 47 fights you've had in all. Obviously, these different styles, the Muay Thai side of things, bare knuckle boxing we've touched on. One that was bare knuckle Muay Thai, which you said you sent to me as well. So I'd like to get into that. But what fights are you most proud of? I mean, besides the Lethwei fights, in like the other parts of your career, you've been very busy. You've been in with some really good guys. And like I say, in the toughest sports you can do, I mean, there's no two ways about it really. Not just one tough sport now, but like multiple, So when you look back at that, which wins or which fights outside of the Lethwei do you look back on and you just think, that was the one, that was something special, if you get what I mean with this?
I don't know. I've done a few seminars where there was you fight 3 times in one night. And I got to the semi-finals twice. Twice it busted me right foot, so I couldn't continue to get to the final. But then to the fight, the fights I had before on them seminars were probably one of my best kick. I was fighting B class for a long time. I didn't really get into the A class until a bit later on in my career. Then it was all like more fast kicks, more fast knees. But then once you go the elbow to the body in B class, and when I moved up to A class, it was less as much kicks. Then it was more wanting to get the elbows in. Do you know what I mean? I wish I'd have been like or younger. Whatever. If I'd have got to the A class a bit more when I was younger, it would have been. It could have been a different story now from what I am now. But I didn't really push it that much. If you know what I mean. I just trained and fought. I enjoyed it. It wasn't really I wanted to just train.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, you've still got a lot to be proud of, I would say. But I get where you're coming from, where you know best, like what did and didn't happen. But I've got a massive amount of respect for what you've accomplished in the fight game. I mean, it's amazing. Obviously, people always want to know about toughest fights. This is something that comes up in every interview I do, regardless of the style. Now, obviously, the Lethwei fights are, I mean, they're as tough as it gets. But at the same time, you've obviously had the bare knuckle and you've done other things. So, would you say was your toughest opponent? I mean, it might go back to like Gaz and some of these guys. It might do, but just checking that there's no one else in there because you fought so many good guys. Which ones stand out for being the toughest ones?
I've been fighting now like 25. Like, but some of the fights I had years ago, I forgot about. But I mean, most one that I can remember that went on for there was Dan Bonner. Fought Dan Bonner. He was a real tough. So it was a good fight that as well. But he stopped me in the fifth. And it was me. It was just I done 5 3-minute rounds. They're too much, aren't they? They're so long. And then he stopped me in the fourth. But the tie fight itself, it was just there was some good going on. It was some good knees, elbows. The both of us give and took. And then he sort of like stopped me in the fourth. One before that, I'd say the best one would have been. I think the best one would have been the bare knuckle tie one when in first done, because that to me was like that was a game changer. That I was bare knuckle tie box gloves on, and it took like 5 fighters pulled out before the fight. One was pulling out for this, one was pulling out for that, one was pulling out for that. And it got to the day before it, Andy went, look, he said, I've got someone there. He said he'll get in with you. He's had so many Thai boxing fights, so many boxing fights. He's all around there. I went, yeah, go on and throw. Then I went down there and I him out in the first round. It was the first 20 seconds. I just caught my shin across his top of his head and like sort of knocked him out. But that was like me. That was like pinnacle part. And I went from there to Greece with my wife, and I was just lapping that up, going, "Oh my god, I really probably enjoyed that," because it was all the getting wrapped. You know what I mean? They wrap you for you, and you're like sitting there going, looking at your hand, and going, "Oh, I'm going to put glove on that, it's mad that." And then you get out there, and your hands were elbow more free because you got your fingers to use. And with your boxing gloves, you're limited to certain things. The bad thing about the bare knuckle, when you're punching, you got your knuckles here, that part of your hands, and this part, the soft part of your hands. When you've got gloves on, you can throw punches no matter how many times you want, and you won't hardly feel them. Bare knuckle, you got to be positioned. You got to be shot more better, because the softer you hit, the more better it is for your hands. Obviously, when someone's covering up, I must have punched Sean's elbows, don't know how many times, on both hands. I couldn't even pick up a cup of coffee the next morning. I was just like, what the fuck? But it's I would say that's it. Park fight would have been probably my highlight. Like, I like the Sean Lomas one, but at the end of that, I was like, it was like someone. It was like I was like the hardest hit me. Some of the injuries that I had. I was just like, my foot was busted. It was like a big tennis basketball. It was just massive. And then I just went to what's called, went home, and then I didn't really get through it. I had to go to the hospital, and I was in the hospital for a few hours. And then that was.
It's amazing, mind the inside track of the stories and the highs and the lows, and it's just something special. You've been in some very special fights. I also have to ask one other thing I forgot to ask earlier. Obviously, with the Lomas fight, you said about some of the damage you had, like with your cheeks and all that sort of stuff. And I read an article somewhere with an interview you gave where I think you were saying in there that you went to the doctor about it, and he said, "Well, yeah, I can reconstruct it, but there's no point you carrying on type of thing. But that was before the fight with Gaz, wasn't it? That was obviously because that was obviously the Sean fight. So what actually happened? They actually had to rebuild part of your face then, is it?
Well, when I went in to see them, he said he said in most when he punched, he said it was either a knee or a headbutt, and I was like, I know I never got knees to fix that whole fight, so it must have been a headbutt, which is caved that. So he said, I can restructure it for you. He said, but if you're going to keep on fighting, there's no point, because if he gets hit again, it was bashing again. He said, it's up to you whether you will. And I went, I'm gonna quit fighting. I've finished it now. So we done. He said, I'll go ahead and reconstruct it for you. He reconstructed it. Of course, I don't know what I did. I wasn't gonna fight again. I was just. It was what was it? I was speaking to Andy on the phone again, and I said, been doing a bit of boxing. I was just hands only. I said, do you want to get? What I've been thinking about having just a hands fight, just not because we're doing loads of bare knuckle boxing, and I just thought, you know what, before I quit, I'll have one go at that, and then I'll quit it. So he organised me another fight, and then that was when I got my eyes split open. That was with what was his name, Don Colores, good lad as well from London, Cockney lad. He hit me with an uppercut. I've hit the floor, got up straight away, but I wasn't phased. It was just a flash. But then as soon as I got up, I just the red just go. And the ref looked at me out, and I was like, "Oh, that was only the first 30 seconds. I think it was the first punch he hit me with. Split my eye straight open. If you look at that, can you see my eye split there?" So anyway, I've gone to the hospital, and they've kept me waiting there for must have been about 7-8 hours. So in the end, I ended up saying to the hospital staff, I said, "Look, I said it's starting to heal. It's starting to get really starting to feel pain." I said, and he said, "Well, we can't really speak. We can't get you in until can you just wait another hour or so?" So I thought, "Oh, it's because I knew the hospital were overstaffed and stuff. So I just did and just wait for another hour." And it got to another hour, and there was nobody in the waiting seats, and I was starting to get a bit off. I was thinking, just sitting there, I want to go and have a bevy. Do you know what I mean? Because I've just had a fight. I'm like getting on to like the next day. I mean, it's just not what's it called. I think it's going to heal, but to touch, it was like an open. It was just like a big gaping wound. It was. You could see like right through my head. It was heavy. So then I went home. I had a few bevies. I went home. I had a few bevies in my mind, and then I'm looking in the mirror. I'm like, don't you start like peeling all the scab out of it. So when it started to heal, so that was really painful. That I was going, I pulled out as much as I could, the best I could. I got it open. I was using it. I think I was using vodka. I was using vodka on a band-aid to make sure it was burning. There was no infections and sort of hoping that was going to work. Anyway. Then I was thinking, I was just going to stitch it. I thought I was just knifing, or I was just get a needle and just put a few lines through, up and down, or whatever. But I got the needle. I pushed it through, and I was like, "Oh, it's just going to hurt too much." Anesthetic or not. My head was still killing from the well. So I ended up, I seen Luke by the door. I went, "Oh, what they used to use them in the well, same stuff they use in the well." So I got it. I've opened up the door, and I've just squared it and then just closed it over like that. And I was just like letting it just, and it was burning, proper burning, super burning. I'm going, it's smoke, smell it. And I kept it there for about 5 minutes, and I thought that should be stuck that now. Then I'm going to move my hand away. Stuck there. And just stuck to my eyebrow. So I've had to like peel my hands one after the other and then get my third one off. My thumb, I had to pull my thumb off. And I looked at it and I was like, you had that. Washed it away with little bit of bobs. Washed it down with the vodka and all that because they had no anesthetic. And then went to sleep. Woke up next running, and it was small, but it was all right. So I got in touch with my mate, who was a nurse, phoned him, said to him, "Look, I've just done this," and he was like, "What? He said, "How have you done that?" I told him. He said, "There's not much." He said, "The super glue that you use sorted like a little bit of a different ingredient." He said, "But it's all thing, yo." He said, "Start feeling sick next 2 days." He said, "Go to the hospital straight away because you got an infection." It's all right. So we got to like 2-3 days, and there was no infection. So I just thought, right, then I give it a week. And then went to the doctors to see the doctor. I want to know if you have a look at my eye. And he went, "Oh, who done it for you?" And I said, "I've done it myself." He said, "I'm doing it." I told him what happened. He was laughing. He was going, "Wow." He went, "But you know what? To be honest, you've done a really good job." He said, "I couldn't really have done a better job ourselves at how you've done it." So that was that. All right, now what's that? Now it's just like my eyebrows and grow properly now though.
Yeah, that is amazing. That is a wild story. I mean, there's not many guys who would do work on themselves like that. So fair play to you. That's something, that is. And it's a great story, behind the scenes as well. You don't get from just watching the fight, but it's what happened afterwards. So it's amazing. That's wild. Obviously, talking about the future a little bit, because we spent a little bit of time looking back at everything you've done with obviously the Thai boxing and bare knuckle boxing and Lethwei and bare knuckle Muay Thai and all these different things. But in terms of where you want to go from here, I mean, you said a little bit about like with the Lethwei, you feel you're past it with that and you don't want to do that. But you were obviously boxing recently, as we talked about as well, the boxing fight recently, unlicensed or
Yeah.
white collar or whatever. So do you want to do more of that in the future? Do you want to go down the bare knuckle side of things? Because obviously that's getting bigger and bigger. Or what are your plans like from here, basically? What's lighting your fire at the moment?
That's a good question. I don't know because every time I've said I'm not fighting, I find myself again. I must have retired myself about 10 times, but the bare knuckles just it's a young sport. You've got to be young for it. You've got to be. I mean, I'm not an old man, but as you get older, your skin gets thinner and thinner. So it just be it's a mess every box or force it in bare knuckle with the gloves because of the extreme. I've got him in them forward like probably the toughest lads around. And then after I got past that to I thought I've done the bare knuckle, the title bare knuckle side, didn't I? With what's another world title. So it was 2 world titles that I lost out on, and I blamed it because of me. Too old for it. If it was another 10 years ago, would have been a bit different, or would have been, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But like with the boxing, when I was a kid, when I was like, my dad took me to the gym, to a boxing gym. I was good at the boxing, and I was there for about 2 years, 3 years, into loads of spars, training boxing, loads of spars, and that's when I started. Because after the boxers would finish, the Thai boxers would start. I think I was about 9 or 10 when I started boxing, and then I'd stay to watch the Thai boxers who would take to the gym after the boxing. And also, I was watching what they were doing on the bag, and I was like, "That's a good little sport. That looks like I might enjoy doing that." So I had a little. At this time, I was got a big fan of Jean Claude, so I could sort of mirror. I could just sort of mirror his style. I could do all his flick kicks. I could do them all. I was just by watching him. I wasn't taught how to do it. I could actually do it. I could just stand in the living room and go, "Mum, watch this." Spin around. Like, done that. Where to learn that from? I go to telly. I was just basically learning off that. So I started getting. I started what? Seen the film Bloodsport?
Yeah, yeah,
Do you
yeah,
remember? Do you remember Pacquiao? The one who he
yeah,
fights. The second one, I watching his style, and I was like his style, and that's when I realized what that style was. What watching in Kirby when I was finishing the boxing, that's what he was fighting. That was Muay Thai, and I was like, wow, I want to have a go with that. So that was where I left off. I left the boxing alone, just went straight into the from about 10, 11 age upwards. Now that I'm at the end of that, I just thought because I'm finished with all that heavy fighting, I thought off, just keep him fit and just do white collar boxing fights. I'll just finish off with and just to stop with. but it's the time and the preparation. It was a trainer with NXG, and I train with Lee and the kids through and helping other kids up, and that's what I should now be doing, touring other children and being their sort of like focus, someone up to them to become champion. I mean that, but that fire in me, I don't want to go out, but with me doing that boxing fight, I think it's not the same fire. It's not the same when you're sitting on the floor and you just got your shorts and your wraps, and I'm I'm doing me warm up with Lee, butterflies, the adrenaline. None of that was with that boxing. I didn't get the same rush that I got with. If that makes any sense to you. So, but I like watching boxing. I think there's a lot of, but there's a lot of such a lot of so much in boxing. The science behind it is unbelievable. Like I never used to watching boxing until I started watching Lomachenko, and when I started watching it, like that's how you're meant to box. That boxing. That's what it's like. Boxing the best at ability. That's where you should box. Started watching that. I was thinking I might just do a white collar boxing shows. So I'm just self-active and this that and then. Like I say, when I fought on the Saturday, it was. I mean, I just didn't get the rush. It's not the same. It's just not. It's just. I mean, everyone's all grown up. Well, everyone's all different. When I was younger, everyone knew each other. And when you walk into them white collar show, you don't know each other because they're all just people. There's different sports, isn't it? So it was that, and just basically wanting and just keeping a good mental health for myself. Do you know what I mean? Because the fire's never going to go out. I don't think the fire will ever go out. But the passion has. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from with it totally, and everything you say, about how the scene has changed and about your passion, your fire, and everything. It all makes a lot of sense. I mean, yeah, keep active for a little bit, have some fun with it. But yeah, I love what you're saying about coaching and giving back as well, because I've got a lot of respect for that. Because obviously you've achieved a lot, obviously, and I know you're very humble, you're very chilled out about it. But there's some very very tough fights there. There's some great names and everything. So for you to give back to the young ones now coming through and give them their sort of hope and inspiration, I think is would be fantastic. Which also leads me to the next question, because the last couple of things now just to talk about is obviously I'm going to put this out there all over the UK and Europe and all different places. So if you had to give advice to young athletes, to young fighters who they're coming up, they want to achieve something. Um, People look up to you because you've been in there with the toughest that you could do. Do you know what I mean? Like you've tested the limits of this type of thing. And I know you're saying about the world titles and the world titles didn't go your way and stuff, but I think in a different way, there's not a lot of people around who've like pushed it as far as you have, if you get what I mean, like as
Yeah.
brutal as it can get. So if you had to give advice to these young guys or whatever, they want to do something, they want to get to a high level or whatever, what would be some things you'd say to them to do, or maybe not to do, or anything? I know it's a big question, but just anything that comes to mind with that really would be awesome.
Just do it. Just if you're gonna be a fighter, make sure you love to fight. Don't just. So advice to give to anyone who was getting involved in a fight game. Only if you love to fight, you love to have competition. You're very very competitive, and you've got capabilities to go for it, and you're not going to be hurt in the ring. And you just got to go. You just um, don't don't think don't be thinking. Don't be going ahead with it if you don't love. If you, it's weird to me saying build a passion up. It takes a while before you start really enjoy it. I mean, I think there's not been one fight that I did enjoy. I actually enjoyed the fight. And at the end of it, you've say, you give your condolences to your opponents, and then I think every fighter, I think most fighters who have ever fought as well. That's the first thing I do is get and I go, brilliant, that last night fight. How are you feeling? And I get good. How are you good? And then you leave it at that, but you stay fun. You got good. You got, and then that's the love that you've got. That's the passion, because you can actually go to war with someone and then go and have a cup of coffee or a pint after it and talk as a civilized person. If you're going to be a fighter, you've got to be able to have that. And don't just, well, I wouldn't do it just for something to do. Kids don't think I'll go and do that. It's just something to do, because it really, it hasn't really, it's not really, fighting isn't for that. Fighting's for something you want to love to do. If you can see yourself gonna, you know you're tough, you're tough enough for it, then go for it. But it's the moment you start not liking it, not loving it, it's the moment you just need to just stop. Just train, but don't fight.
Yeah. It's good advice, actually. It's really good advice because, especially these days as well, when you've got all the social media stuff, which I think has changed the game a bit, because obviously they think that fighting's going to lead them to certain things, a lot of money and being famous, and it might do that. But if you don't love it, then you're not going to enjoy the process. And I think there's a lot of people now, they can talk their way into fights and stuff, and it's not the same as like your generation, where you really had to fight and win and do well to sort of get anywhere. And yeah, having that mentality to loving it, if you don't enjoy the process with anything you do, then there's no point in doing it. So it's really good advice, I gotta say. And last question as well, pretty much before we wrap this up, is obviously your fans and your supporters now with your fights, whether they are good mates or whether they're people on social media, since I've just mentioned that, who are like messaging you and all this type of thing. Obviously, I often close out with a message to the fans, because obviously sports would be nothing without people buying tickets and all that stuff. So, to people who support you, whether you know them well, whether you don't know them and they're just messaging you or whatever, what would you say to the people who've supported your career and been positive and all that sort of stuff so far,
Oh,
if you get what I mean?
I've got so much love for them all. I have. I mean, it's exactly St. Helens, stuff, fighters all over the place who've come to watch me and text me, putting it on, and it makes it more. That's why when you lose, most of the time, if you lose, it's because you've lost, because everyone else has seen you lose, because you're there because you lost yourself. But it hurts because you want to because people have paid the money and came to watch. You want to give the best. When you don't give them the best, it feels a bit disheartening. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'd say I'd love to say personally thank you to everyone, person that bought a ticket or watched mine or have messaged me, because sometimes when you lose, well, people, you get loads of messages. Oh, I didn't go your way there. You were so unlucky, and like that does really, you read it at first. You don't really reply at first, but it all sinks in later. I know a few days later, you can and you get back to them one at a time. So thanks for that, mate. This, that, and the other. But thanks for your support. It goes both ways, and I've got so much love for the that come out to watch it and stuff. And when I bought that gas, it was I was texting some people I don't even know. Right, I was like, oh yeah, it's in like everyone and on the what's he said this fight was going to be the one to watch. Everyone was all geared up for it, but I wasn't aware of the free knockdown rule apply. See, in Lethwei, there's no point scoring. Got to just fight and knock them out to win. And if it goes to a draw, then if it goes to the end of the fight, then both of you put your hands up as a draw. So there was no thing, So when we were organising that fight, I didn't go to the rules engagement. Normally, you get to the rules engagement, and people bring all the fight around and they tell you what the rules are. I wish I had just said to Andy, what are the rules on this? And he would have said, oh, yeah, if you put your hands down 3 times on the floor, it's getting stopped. And I went, right, okay. But when Gaz fought, he was he'd come for he'd been watching my fights for been like he said that I'd been in his head for about 7 weeks. It's like he'd been in my head. Both was thinking about it, but we were both we were both friendly with each other because because we were good mates. We weren't like good mates, but we knew each other, but we knew each other from the shows, from laughs, and we ended up. And as soon as we started talking, we got on dead well. So the rule with the left what they put in was if you put your hand down 3 times, the fight's getting stopped. So Gaz says, he said, you're a slow starter. He said, our team knew that because I am a slow starter. Start, touch, warm up. Round about second round, third, go then, and then before you, and then you're in the fight. Then you know what I mean? Gaz knew that, so Gaz closed me off straight away. Didn't give me any time to try and feel out or nothing. And then when he rushed me, and all I could feel with his right hand at the side of the head. He put me down once, but like it was like a flash knockdown. I got up straight away, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm all right." Then he rushed me again, and then I went down again. But he hit me some body shots, and a right hand. Then I went down again, put my hand down again. But this time I got up, and then the referee. I thought the referee would have said to me, "Put your hand down one more time, the fight's over." No warning. He didn't say that. So I was like trying to get me, trying to keep away from that. I knew he was just like a wrecking ball. He was just out there to destroy me. Do you know what I mean? Destroy me. And then when he come on to me on the exchange, I lifted him with a right elbow and put him down. But he got up and he didn't. He where it was or not. And then when the referee give him a standing count, then he brought us back together. And my mate was saying to me, "Why was you putting your hand out?" I was just like, "I was, you know, you touch it, you're ready to fight again." But, you know, I was just like, if it wouldn't have been, it wasn't Gaz, I would have jumped right at him because it was Gaz. I was like, "You know, all right, yeah," and he was just like, but he just went steam forward again, and then made me put my hand down to the floor again, and then the referee. I was like, "What have you stopped it for?" I couldn't believe it, but like, it is what it is in that type of situation. But taking that from Gaz, he was as me. He's like, "I don't know, I can't believe it's over that quick." I thought it was going to go right to the 5 rounds with me and Gaz, but because that 3 knockdown rule came into play, it would have been. And I was literally, I was seconds away from not 3 seconds, or 10 seconds, or 5 seconds away from the end of the first round as well. So we would have got like we composed. We would have got Lee in the corner, right, do this, and then my game plan would have changed. Yeah, I would have been like, right, this now. Because I didn't get past the first round, it didn't go my way, so Gaz won, which was good to see. I wanted to. I was buzzing when Gaz Gaz got that crown because he's been through so much well himself, Gaz, and I was made up that he was able to take that crown home, become the elite fighter, as they say, which is boss.
Yeah. Well, it's an amazing story, you know, to hear your, like, obviously you can watch the fight and that's one thing, but obviously being in there is a totally different thing. So, you know, to hear it from your point of view is just amazing, to get the insight into it. And yeah, I've got so much respect for Gaz as well, and you know, he's a legend, and so are you. So it was an amazing fight, and you know, it was definitely part of history, at the end of the day, you know. I don't think I'm doing it justice with words. I mean, it was such an amazing fight while it lasted, but you know, it's something. But we've got into some amazing, topics today. You know, I'm very happy with it. You know what we talked about and everything. So, like I said before, mate. I mean, I really appreciate you making the time for it. Really appreciate you coming on, and just basically, I also appreciate you just being an open book, basically, and sharing everything that you shared and all that type of stuff. It's really good. So, and I'm sure the fans will love it. Other fighters will love it as well. There's a little bit of advice in there for them, so it's a win-win on all counts. So thank you, mate. Honestly, it's been a real pleasure, you know.
Pleasure me. You've been a pleasure talking to you, Luke. Thanks very much. Liam, sorry.
No worries. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.